Hi, friends. My name is Celise, and I just wanted to do a quick story time about one of the biggest lies that I've been told. And I have no ill feelings for the family members that are involved in this. And also, I just wanted to share my story because when I was going through it, I couldn't find any sources of anyone who's had a similar story to mine. And so I hope this brings comfort and also helps other people who are dealing with a very similar situation to mine and bring them some comfort and knowing that you're not alone in this, and there's some there's someone out there that's in a very similar predicament than you are in. Okay, so we're just going to go back a few years, a couple years. It was May of 2018. I was 21 years old and I just graduated from UConn with a bachelor's in biology. And it was a really good time for me because I was just so over university and I just wanted to go on with my life because I was so over homework. But hindsight's always 2020. But again, it was a really G. It was a really it was a really nice time for me. Like I was in a good place. And a week after I graduated, I was at home and my mom, she was sitting at the edge of her bed. She was in the dark and she just got off the phone with my grandmother. That's her mother. And and she was crying. And I just went in her room and I was like, Mom, what's wrong? Because we always have deep conversations and usually, you don't see your mom cry. And when you do, you want to know why. So I inquired and, excuse me, she was like, it was really hard for her to get words out of her mouth. And she said forcefully, like, I wanted to tell you, but I didn't know how to. And I was just like, what did you want to tell me? And so she couldn't even look at me. She was facing the wall and I was on the opposite side of the bed, kneeling on the ground and kind of hovering over the bed. That's how I usually sat on the bed. Like, that's how I usually positioned myself when we had important conversations. I'm very impatient and I didn't even give my mother time to kind of like tell me because I just needed to know. So I was like, are you dying? Like, are you sick? And she was like, no, I'm perfectly fine. You don't have to worry about that. And then I was like, what? Like, what is it? Is dad not my real dad? And I don't even know why I asked that. But for some reason, I've been hinted to that notion a few like weeks ago before that. And for some reason, I just had to get it off my chest. And once I asked that, she just broke down and my heart dropped. And I was just like, wait, so dad's not my real dad? And she was just like, no. And I kind of was lost in my train of thought because all of these thoughts were rushing through my head. Like, I have two sisters that are also from my mother, and I was just thinking like, wow, they're not my full sisters. And I thought about times when I was in school, back in middle school, I was bullied a lot. And a lot of people thought that my sister was prettier than I. Like, we were compared a lot. And everyone was people didn't understand like how two parents of lighter skin had a dark skinned daughter. And I was like, it happens. My grandma's dark skin and she had 5 light skinned babies. And so I was really adamant. I was like, oh, yep, we have the same parents, so it's just genetics. Like, I really defended being biologically related to my dad, and kind of like figuring out that that's not even true was it was heartbreaking, going through that. And especially knowing that reality for 21 years of my life. And just like, it was really interesting. So we were crying and stuff, and we talked about it. And she talked about the circumstances in which I was conceived 21 or 22 years ago at that point. And so I don't want to get into the details of that, but she was just telling me how things happened, and how she did not want me to know about him, and rightfully so. And so so we're going to go ahead a few months, but in that time period it was really difficult for me because I struggled heavily with identity crisis, where I didn't think I would. I didn't think it would bother me that much to know that new reality, but I'm like, there's a man out there that has my blood, and I know nothing about him. And my entire family knew. They have an idea of who he is. My grandmother and my mother obviously know him more, but all of my family knew about it. And I'm like, wow, everyone knew about this secret except for me and my sisters. My sisters found out with me. And it was really crazy. I was just like, what about, like, I have this whole other side of my family, other relatives that I have no idea about. What about these health conditions that I could have? And like, what about this and that? Like, so many thoughts have gone through my head, and I just was like, who am I? I didn't think an identity crisis was that severe until I've gone through it myself. And so, fast forward a few months, August of 2018, I was just talking to my mom, like, I have to figure out who this man is, because you guys are telling me this idea of him, and I want to know for myself. I want to get that judgment. I feel like I deserve that. So my mother told me his name, and I looked him up. Because of the circumstances, I was able to find him online, and it had his information. And you know what the crazy thing is? He lived parallel to my street the entire time. The entire time. How did this man that I've never met, who's my biological father, lived in the same town, not even 2 minutes away? And that was just like, huh? How? So crazy. So I was just like, I need more information. And my mother told me the name of his sister. I looked her up on Facebook because he doesn't have any social media. And I reached out to her. I was like, hi, I'm this person's daughter, and I just really would like to get some contact information so I could reach out. And she didn't respond. So I also messaged one of her sons, who would be my cousin, and I messaged him roughly the same message. And he was like, oh, like, he ended up messaging me back. And then also, I guess something happened in the background, because my aunt ended up responding to me, my paternal aunt. And she gave me his number, and she was like, call him immediately or text him or something. So I got his number, and I remember having it in my hand. Like, I was like a whole investigator at this point, and I had it in my hand, and I was just like, I can't believe, like, this is like, this is the person who helped create me, and I had no idea who he was. And so I ended up texting him because I didn't want to call. I'm not a person who likes to talk on the phone unless you are someone I know, and I enjoy hearing your voice. So I texted him, hey, this is Celise, your biological daughter, blah 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 blah. And he was like, I'm coming right now. He didn't even give me he didn't even give it like 2 seconds. And he ended up calling me, and I forgot the words he was saying, but he was, I guess, like, professing like his love as a father to me. And he was like, I always wanted you to know, like, all this stuff, like, I wanted you to know, and I'm so happy that you reached out, blah blah blah. but I'll be there. Are you at that same address? So he knew exactly where I was too. And um and that also kind of like put an idea in my head that I will address to my mother later. But he ended up coming to the house because I guess he ended up moving, and he drove over to the house less than 10 minutes, and he came out the car. I was so nervous to go out that my mother, she also came out with me, and he came out to me and gave me like this really big hug and was like, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. I will never stop saying I love you and all this stuff. And he's like, I wanted you to know, and said, like, he was talking and talking. And it was just a really weird moment because I didn't know how to feel. I was like, I don't know this man. I don't love him. I have no idea. And there's so many questions. We ended up taking a ride that day, and he got us some coffee and things like that. And it was still really weird. And it's something that I feel like I'm still kind of like struggling with in a way, because it's still very fresh. Like, I'm 23 now. It's 2020, and it's only been a little more than 2 years that I've known this other side of my family. And like, just realizing that the sons that my dad, the person that I grew up to be my dad, has all these other kids outside of my mom, and just realizing that those aren't even my biological siblings anymore. And also realizing how, just it's just really weird. And if you're going through something similar to this, just know that it's going to be okay. I did slip into a very vulnerable, like, depression, and I don't even recognize that person that I was. And I know there were all these different external points in my life where it kind of like built up to this point. Like, I had an internship in the summer of that time period, and then after the summer internship ended, I couldn't find a job. So after graduating from a 4-year university and not being able to find a job right out of college, which they kind of like promise, it was really daunting, and it deteriorated my mental health. And then also dealing with my identity crisis and things like that. There was a lot going on in my head, and it really brought me down to a really low point. And sometimes I find myself, I slip in it sometimes still, due to other things. Obviously, it's 2020. And I just wanted to tell you that, like, if you find something crazy like this happens to you, it's okay. It's not your fault. It's never your fault. And you were just a product of whatever your parents were doing. And that's basically it. But um I just want you to know that it's okay, and there are people out there that is just like you, and or not just like you, but have similar experiences like you. And when I was trying to find kind of like consoling, because no one really knew how to respond, it was a very unique situation. I obviously looked through the internet to see if there was maybe some stories like mine, and I couldn't find anything. So, like, yeah, there's those sperm donor stories, and um, maybe people in foster care systems and they're finding their biological parents, but I couldn't find one that was like mine. And so I'm hoping that for you guys, if you are in a similar situation, just know that you're not alone, and you can always talk to me in the comments, and we can share our stories and details together. Like, that's what we're here for, and that's why I'm telling you my story. And I'm hoping that my vulnerability will help you understand that, we all are going through something, and that, like, it's just life, and that's about it. And if you got to this point, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me that I'm able to talk to you about these things, and that you listen. And if you would like to subscribe or comment and like, that would also be great too. But again, you're not obligated to. Um, but thank you. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for listening. Bye.